Rare Together is all about bringing together people from across the world to unite them in what makes them unique, being rare together. But that means that a lot of our participants are dialing in from different countries and with variable internet connections. So occasionally, the audio quality might drop a little in this episode. If that happens, we do apologise in advance, but rest assured that anything you need to know, you'll find in the episode description. Hello, and welcome to Rare Together, a regular podcast from LDA Research, which looks at what it's like to live and cope with rare diseases, I'm your host, Andrew Grant, and today I'm delighted to say we have two guests joining us who have very kindly agreed to share their experiences with us. Now, I should say that our guests actually suffer from two different diagnoses. As we'll see, there are some similarities between the two. So, without any further ado, let me introduce you to our two guests. They are both from the United Kingdom. And firstly, we have Bobbie from Northumberland. Welcome, Bobbie. And in addition, we have Joanna from, I believe it's Kent, is that right, Joanna?
Yes, that is.
All right. Well, welcome both of you, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. We really do appreciate it. So I'm going to start off with you, Bobbie, if you don't mind. Can you briefly sort of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your home situation and tell us something about the rare disease that you suffer from, please.
Okay, I'm Bobbie. I live in Northumberland, which is a beautiful place now. A beautiful place. I am 66 and I have had lymphedema since 1985. Lymphedema is a swelling, normally of either an arm or a leg. Normally, it's happened because of surgery or radiation damage following cancer treatment, which is what mine is. And it basically, the fluid goes down the leg, but it doesn't come back up. So it just gets bigger and bigger.
Right. Okay. So is that happening all the time or is it occasional? Or
Well, no, it's all the time. I've had this since 1985. And it gets worse and worse, and there is no way of it getting better. It is impossible. It will only ever get worse. It cannot. There's nothing they can do, basically.
Okay. Is there any way that it can be relieved?
Well, it's managing it. I wear basketball stockings, which is a very, very heavy, thick knit. Very hot in summer, but fortunately, it's 18 degrees here. Not like you lot does that. And so it doesn't get as hot up here. But there's also manual lymphatic drainage and a pump which can help to try and push the fluid into the body. But it's managing it. It will never improve.
Right. I understand. I'll come back to that in a second. Joanna, perhaps you could do the same. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your home situation and tell us about the disease that you suffer from, please.
All right. I'm Joanna. I will be 52 in next month. As you can tell, I have a Canadian accent because I grew up in Canada. Right. Just wanted to clarify. But I have Dercums Disease. Dercums Disease is a loose connective tissue disorder. So what that means is that I grow lymphomas, mainly in my torso, but I do have in arms and upper knees up, basically. Unfortunately, some of the lymphomas can grow in very precarious positions, which can cause pain. I've only had 2 removed. I am currently looking to have a third, which is affecting my left arm. It sits right at the elbow, so I'm having nerve problems and things like that. There's a whole slew of side effects with this condition. It does have some similarities to fibromyalgia, so they do say that they're comorbid. So I deal with a lot of fatigue, a lot of brain fog, a lot of muscle ache, joint pain. It's a very uncomfortable condition to have. The lymphomas, I can feel them growing. It's like an itch that you can't scratch. It's there is no cure for this disease. There's not a lot of medical research on it. Basically, I am just being managed for pain. Removal of lymphomas is one of the options when they do become a hindrance to my daily life. I'm still a teacher. I still work full time, exhausted at the end of the day, but I keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Understood. Thank you. That's a great intro.
Thank you.
Well, Bobbie, let me come back to you. What would you say is the worst aspect of living with your condition?
Oh gosh, there's several things. I mean,
I'm sure there's several. Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's one of my legs is 77% bigger than the other.
Oh, wow.
So clothing and shoes were a real nightmare. Obviously, because fit one and the other is way too big. And it is heavy. It is so heavy. It's walking upstairs and up hills. It's very difficult. Walking on the flat for miles, but up the stairs, hills, it's a real slog up. You can feel it. And it takes the whole time. There's not a time it doesn't ache. And it's just
okay. There's interesting that you say you can walk on the floor. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
on the side, fine. I've got slower as I've got older now. But, I can walk around the flat, and walking is good for it because it helps pump the lymph around the body.
I was going to ask that. Right, okay.
There are others on the stairs that are just, it's so heavy lifting it. And your mind says you can do things. It's like climbing a stile. And then you get halfway up and your body says, what on earth do you think you're doing? And you're getting quite embarrassed, and it's hard getting up. If you fall over, it's hard to get back up again. And of course, I'm lopsided in weight. So if I start to trip, it's very difficult to stop myself going because of the weight.
I mean, is that something that's happened to you, a few times that you've fallen over?
Yeah, I fell over in March in Edinburgh, and I broke a bone in my hand, metacarpal in my hand, broke my glasses, had a lovely black eye. And it was just embarrassing. And I was crossing the street at the time, so I was lucky not to get run over. But you just fall flat and you just feel so ridiculous. And then it's hard getting up because my knee doesn't bend so well because it's swollen. And so, you can't just jump up like you can when you're young. You sort of literally got to go on hands and knees to get up. And then hopefully there's something you can lean on, push yourself up.
Right. And were you on your own at that point?
Yes,
Or was that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, now, unfortunately, the car driver who was coming up towards me stopped and helped me get up. And two care workers who were driving past in the opposite direction stopped and helped and made sure I got up. The car driver actually drove me back down to my daughter's because I was at the time on babysitting duty. And literally saw me to the door. And then my husband had gone for a run, but my daughter was in, so we dealt with it. So new glasses and a broken button.
That's really interesting. So, Joanna, does any of that? I saw you nodding a couple of times. Does any of that kind of resonate with you? What sort of experience would you relate to?
Definitely the pain. Part of one of the symptoms, I do get swelling. And I do find that when I have the swelling in the lower extremities, then my pain intensifies. I've had many doctors tell me that doesn't hurt, but yes, it does. And so, that pain, dealing with that all the time is really, really a struggle. And because you're so focused on just trying to do everything that you normally would, you're using up so much energy to just be, because your body's trying to compensate for this pain and you're trying to do what you normally would do. And it's really, I can understand the struggle of that, just trying to go up the stairs. when I have a pain flare, it can flare up. I can be immobile. It's hard. I have stairs. And sometimes it's hard to go up the stairs because my body is just too tired. My muscles are too sore. I feel like I can imagine, I can't say that I know exactly, but I can imagine what that weight feels like on the legs, because sometimes just going up the stairs, it's hard. It's really, really hard. So I get that.
What sort of pain are we talking about? Can you describe it?
It's hard to describe because it's not a poking pain. It's not, I guess I think, Bobbie, you might understand this, that when you swell up, you get that pressure pain and it feels like your skin is going to burst. I don't know if that's how you feel, but it's like a pressure pain, but it also feels tingly at the same time. Yeah. Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, I mean, mine, it does. With lymphedema, you have to be so careful to look after the skin to make sure it doesn't break.
Yeah.
And so you have to moisturize it well, make sure you don't walk barefoot or anything so that you don't get any bites or any scratches, because then you get infection in, which leads to cellulitis, which is very unpleasant.
Yes, my cousin actually gets cellulitis. She gets bit.
It's horrible. And you really feel absolutely awful. My pain is not just in that leg. I also have it in the other leg, partially because I'm compensating, so I'm walking strangely, and partially because of other things. I tried doing swimming because swimming is supposed to be good for it. I got bursitis in my knee and a repetitive attitude. Here I was saying, well, you can't win sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now that's really interesting. So, you're both describing that the skin feels under tension. Is that what you're saying? And feels as though it might just crack open. And does it crack open?
We get sort of what we call orange peel skin. It just looks like orange peel. I don't know if you get the same, Joanna, but it really does. It looks like the skin of an orange. It goes loads and loads of very small indentations, and it's really stretched. And that's normally the precursor to cellulitis.
Okay.
I actually don't have that orange peel kind of skin, but I definitely have dry skin, and it does. I do have to moisturize a lot. I definitely have to take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my leg never sees the sunshine. We go on holiday, and I will wear the stocking. I'll wear it in the pool or in the sea, whatever. I will wear a stocking the whole time. And if I'm on the sun lounger, because we've just come back from holiday, I will have my stocking on, but I'll have a towel over the top as well. So no chance of my tongue burning or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you do feel a bit strange when you're in the swimming pool and you've got this big leg.
I'm sure.
Wearing your stocking.
I'm sure. And so tell me about wearing the stocking. I mean, what are the things around wearing the stocking?
Well, I wear class 4, which is the heaviest you can get. And it is extremely difficult to get on. When you're in hospital and they give you these socks and things, that's class 1. People struggle with them. Most old people are given class 1 and they'll struggle with. These are class 4. You cannot stretch them. I was in hospital once after having abdominal surgery, and the doctor said, right, it's time to get you in your stockings again. I couldn't bend over. And he said, we'll get 2 nurses to do it. These 2 nurses spent half an hour trying desperately to get my stocking on, soaked in sweat, and gave up. Because there is a technique. I mean, if my husband tries to help me, he ends up poking me and prodding me, and it ends up more painful than trying to do it yourself.
Okay. So are you able to do it yourself then?
I am, yes. With difficulty. Yes, I do it myself. I've got it. I've learned a technique that works for me. When I broke my hand, it was a lot harder, obviously. And there are little tools you can get them. Get it. The hard bit is getting it over the ankle, strangely, because the foot's fine. When you've got to get a heavy material over the ankle, it doesn't want to go because it's bigger. It's wider at the bottom of the foot bit, the heel. And so trying to push that over is very difficult.
I can imagine.
It's horrible.
Understood. Coming back to you, Joanna, one thing that struck me as the difference between the two of you is that you do have the option to have some of the lumps removed. But tell me about that. Under what circumstances does that happen? And where do you have to get to in order to what stage do you have to get to in order to have that done?
You basically have to get to a point where your arm is affecting your everyday life. The first one I had removed was on my right shoulder, but I had that one done in Canada. And that one was done because I went to a neurologist and they did the carpal tunnel surgery at the same time because it was showing that I was getting the numbness and the tingling. And I'm right-handed. It's my dominant hand. And it was affecting my writing. It's affecting my driving. So it was becoming a hindrance. So they did the surgery and removed the lipoma at the same time. When I moved here, I had one removed in my forearm, and I was having the same symptoms. So I was losing feeling. I was getting tingling. Any repetitive motions, it would go numb. I also had carpal tunnel on that one as well because they removed the lipoma, and that one was done actually just at the surgery because it wasn't. It was a simple removal. But the one that on my elbow, I'm just in the process. When they removed the one on my forearm, I was already complaining. I'm saying, this is probably because it sits right at the elbow. There's nerve endings, and so it is becoming a hindrance. Anything I do with two hands, the left arm, I'm getting pain and things like that. So I know the NHS will only remove if it becomes a hindrance or it inhibits my life in any way. So I have to prove that it is a problem before they will do anything. But when the plastic surgeon, when he did my carpal tunnel, he looked at it and kind of felt around. I said, well, we might not be able to remove it, which would mean because of where it sits in the nerves, he said, we could do more damage than good. I'm hoping that's not the case because if that is the case, lipomas grow, they get bigger. And the bigger they get, the more problems they can cause. So what might happen is it might grow and I might lose the feeling in my arm permanently. It's really hard to say how it will go, but I'm hoping that the surgery will remove it and cause some or solve some of the problems that are causing the pain, the numbness, tingling, and
right. Yeah. I'm sure we hope for you as well. So you have to prove that it's a hindrance. So how do you go about proving that something isn't?
You really have to just whine at your doctor a lot. I think that's how the one on my forearm removed was like, it's causing me problem. I work full time. I'm a teacher. I need my hands, right? I need to do things. I need to cook. I do live by myself. So I'm dependent on me. And if I can't do something, it gets a bit tricky. But it was just that reasoning. It is a problem. We need to do something about it. And the doctors that I have now are really, really good. And they do understand. And they're quite persistent as well. Mind you, when I first went to them after my diagnosis, they had no idea what Dercums was. So I had to kind of educate them a little bit.
You're talking about your GP here, are you?
Yeah, I'm talking about my GP. Even some of the specialists that I've seen don't know what it is. Yeah, it's really interesting.
So how did you feel about having to educate, a healthcare professional?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of part of me is like, well, you should know this, right? That part of me is like, well, you should know. This is your profession. But then thinking about it, it's like, well, doctors don't know every disease out there. And if it's a rare one, it's not something that they're going to be aware of unless they specialize in. I think the one doctor that knew of Dercums, he was actually a specialist in rare diseases. So it was his repertoire. But I do find it kind of amusing. I mean, who wouldn't? You're educating a GP about something medical. But there is a frustration as well because they don't know a lot about it. There's not a lot of research, and every case is individual. So the frustration comes in when you're explaining what you're feeling, and the doctor really just, it's not that they don't understand. It's not that they're not empathetic. It's just they don't know. They don't feel it like I do. So I think that there's that, I guess, I don't know how to explain, but it is a bit, sorry?
You said earlier something that kind of made me smile, although I could sympathize with your situation. You said doctors were saying fat doesn't.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Right. Okay. So is that them just not believing you or not listening to you or just thinking they know better than you?
I think so. Yeah. I can't really say what they're thinking, but I take it as like, you're not really listening. You think that you know more than me because you're medically educated. But I'm physically educated. I know my body and I know how it feels. And I'm trying to, like, even just explaining to you how my body feels, the pain. It's hard to explain that to someone who can't really relate. Because I think it's unique. And in the research I've done, because I've had to look at my own conditions, but I've looked at lymphedema as well, just to kind of make sense of what my disease is, because there's not a lot of information out there. You have to go into your own research bubble and get the answers that you want, because it's really tricky.
Oh, I can sympathize with that, absolutely. I saw you nodding there, Bobbie, when Joanna was talking just now.
My husband spent 38 years in the Royal Air Force, so we've moved a lot. And I've had to educate every single GP about, not just about lymphedema. I also am greedy. I have 2 stomas. So not just one, most people have one. I have 2.
Right.
And so I've had to always educate the doctors. Now I've heard of colostomies. Very few have heard of urostomies. And even fewer know what lymphedema is. And they just understand. They just think and lots of them think it's water retention, which of course it isn't. And they give people water retention tablets. That does absolutely nothing, because it's nothing to do with water retention. And they do about a quarter of an hour of education on lymphedema in their medical training. So in 7 years, they do it for 15 minutes.
Okay.
That's not really going to stick, is it? Let's be honest.
How did you find that out? That's a really interesting
I actually had a doctor tell me that.
Okay.
It's 15 minutes worth of education. They're probably signing the nails or doing something else, because it's not an interesting disease or problem. It's not interesting. There's nothing can be done about it. It's managing it. Oh, well, I'm not going to. Sort of thing, I think.
So tell me about that process. This is really interesting. So as you say, you moved around. So you sign up with a new GP. Do you immediately launch into, let me tell you what's wrong with me? Or do you wait for them to, kind of show you?
No, I'm normally going because it takes a long time for notes to catch up with you.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah.
And of course, there's medication that has to be dealt with and standard bags and all the rest of it. So I have to go in. I go in with pre-set notes and things, as much as I can from previous prescriptions, whatever. My last specialist because we lived in the Netherlands before we came here. And he actually did me a CD disc with all my MRIs on and everything else.
Oh, what?
And which I took along to him and gave to him, having kept a copy. I was actually looking at your own MRIs. They were really the best. It really is.
Sure, I think so.
But that was because I'd had a really good specialist who was he was the top colorectal person in the Netherlands. And so he was able to give me all that help. I mean, he was great.
Right.
And lymphedema is far more understood on the continent than it is in England.
Okay, this is.
Because they actually know what it is. They have far more training on it, and they do from letting massage of it. And they manage it far better than in the UK.
Right.
Because in Europe, everything is on insurance based.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands, anyway, we didn't have to, but the system was everybody paid a set amount, and all your treatment was included that. If you wanted a single room, you paid supplements. If you wanted homeopathic remedies, you paid supplements. But otherwise, everybody got the same treatment. If you were on the dole, then it was taken out of your dole before you got it.
Right.
Precaution.
Yeah.
So everybody was on the insurance. And it worked. You put so quickly that I mean, you couldn't believe how quickly stuff worked.
Okay. If you or someone you know is affected by a rare disease diagnosis, I'd like to take a moment to point you in the direction of the Rare Disease Network. It's a private support group on Facebook where we bring together people with all sorts of rare diseases from all over the world. You'll find exclusive research and insight. You'll get the chance to ask your questions to leading medical professionals, and you'll hear some engaging and inspirational stories from our growing community. There's a link to the group in the episode note below. We'd love to see you there. Sorry to cut across you. You mentioned the manual massage. So is that something you can get as a treatment, or is that?
Yes, you can. Well, supposedly you can get it, but there's no availability of it. It always used to be available. Cuts. It's not an attractive thing, that you just can't do it. But you literally, when you do it yourself, you have to clear all the lymph nodes. You actually start up here. And you have to rub it all, and you work your way down and both sides all round. And to clear the leg, you've got to clear the ears. It's just amazing, but you've got to. Yeah, so it's time consuming. And
in theory, when it was available, who was it? Who was?
It was a lymphedema nurse would do it.
Okay, yeah, understood.
So we had one locally where I live, right on the English-Scottish border, Northumberland. And we actually had a lymphedema nurse in Berwick, which is my local town.
Right.
And then the local council decided they would not fund them to do it anymore. They could continue to do it for free if they wanted.
Okay.
Strangely enough, they refused to do that.
I wonder why.
Instead, they sent everyone 65 miles away, down to Newcastle.
Right. Okay. Right. That's sad that that's the case, isn't it? I mean, so when you had manual massage, did it give you relief? Was it helpful?
Well, it does help. It really does help because it moves the fluid, and you cannot move it yourself in the same way as somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
Because you can't get the pressure, the right pressure, because you can't push too hard. Because if you push too hard, you actually squash the lymphatic glands.
Okay.
And then it won't move. So you've got to get exactly the right pressure, and it's a lot harder to yourself than it is somebody else who knows what they're doing.
I can imagine. So Joanna, are there any other sort of techniques? We talked about manual massage there. Are there any other techniques that you can use or you have access to that help relieve your symptoms at all?
I can only really do light exercise. And I have recently just finished, because they only give you 6 weeks of sessions, 1 per week of hydrotherapy.
All right.
I find that I can do the exercises. It is very tiring though. Bobbie, you were talking about massage, and I really wish I could have massage as a treatment. But unaware that I had Dercums in my 20s, that's when my lumps started appearing. But when I did go for a massage, I found it really painful, and I couldn't understand why, especially in the hip, buttocks areas where it hurt the most. And that is actually because of the Dercums, because my skin and my connective tissue is so sensitive that any pressure really hurts. So as much as I would love to have massage, it's such a painful experience. That is not an option for me. But I do, when my pain is quite bad, I will soak in the hot tub. And I do topical pain relievers as well. Pain gets really bad. Other than that, it's painkillers. I kind of live on them, which is unfortunate. But yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes, I was going to mention that actually. That's interesting. So, are you taking painkillers all the time, or?
I do. I've had a couple mix-ups because you email for your renewal of your prescription, and there was a delay. And I was 3 days without my pain, and I could, by the end of the 3rd day, I was having trouble walking. It's very painful if I don't take them.
Okay.
And since then, every time I email, I'm like, I have to have them by this date or I'm going to run out. And I've specified I can't go to work if I don't.
How do you, when you said, unfortunately, I have to take them all the time, how do you feel about taking painkillers constantly?
As a person who would try desperately do not take any form of medication up until the pain got unbearable. It was a real mental struggle for me to say that I actually need them. And because of the pain medication I'm on, there are certain stigmas, addiction, and things like that. And there's always that idea in the back, well, am I addicted or am I actually in pain? But those moments where I do come off of them for whatever reason, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely, I'm taking them for the pain. I have to. And to be someone like me, a very independent woman who wants to do everything, and to be so reliant on a little pill to have some semblance of a normal life is really, really mentally challenging.
Right.
You really have to talk to yourself and say, you need this. If you want to do the things that you want to do, you need to take these pills, and it's okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting self-conversation that you need to have.
Yeah.
Where do painkillers come into play for you, Bobbie?
Oh, well, I could take painkillers every single day because I always so I'm really trying to force myself not to.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be reliant on them. That's the only way I can function. Things like sleeping tablets, I'm allowed sleeping tablets, but I try not to take them too often. It's only a weekly treat and maybe a bi-weekly treat just to get a decent night's sleep, and even then it will still only be half a night. But it's just because of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite a stubborn person, I think, in that way, and I fought this for so long that I don't give in to it. It's getting worse, getting harder, and especially as you get older and other arthritis comes in and other things come in. But it's trying to be as normal as I can I'm not a gregarious person. I'm very self-conscious in my leg. I'm self-conscious, in fact, I've got 2 legs. And so I'm not a big party person. I'm quite quiet. Husband's reasonably quiet as well. So, we're happy with our lives. If I was well, my life would be fun.
Actually, I was going to ask, and I'll ask you as well, Joanna, in a second. I know your situation is different. So, Bobbie, how does your condition affect your husband or any other members of the family for that matter?
Well, I mean, my children don't remember me being well because they were 7 and 2 when I got cancer. And everything has all been a result of the cancer treatment, the radiotherapy especially. Because I had that in the 1980s and then it was far more widespread. So, they can target it better nowadays. But they couldn't then. And so it basically fried my insides. There's no other way to put it. Fried my bladder, fried my bowels.
Right.
And so they stopped working properly. But it caused the lymphedema. So they don't remember me being well.
Okay.
But they do know that I'm always fighting, trying to do all these things. My grandchildren now know I can't do certain things.
Mm.
And I can't do certain things, but Papa can. So my husband can. And he's supported me ever since then. Well, I mean, even before then, but since then. Because when I was diagnosed on the 13th of February, and they said, don't expect to see Christmas. And as I say, I'm leaving this world one bit at a time, but I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And thanks to my husband, he's the one that dragged me down to the doctors when I don't want to go because they're going to find something else. Or they're going to drag me back into hospital, which I hate.
Okay. Actually, yes. Oh no, we didn't touch on that. You've not mentioned. So have there been quite a few times where you've had to go back to a hospital?
Yeah.
Right. How often is this happening?
Not often now. Thank goodness. I manage myself. When I came back from the Netherlands and I was sent to my gastroenterologist for the very first time, I wasn't feeling particularly brilliant. And my husband calls me the Energizer Bunny, and he says he can see me slowing down.
Okay.
I got there, I went to see the specialist, and he liked me so much he kept me for 10 days. So I went to an outpatient appointment and was dragged in and kept it. Now he realizes I can manage myself reasonably well. Mainly because most people, when they have about 7 or 8 liters of small bowel, I have 1.2, so I don't absorb nutrients.
Right.
So I get very tired quite suddenly. It will suddenly be, I'll get really drained. As Ken said, it's just like me running out of a battery.
Right.
Just going,
Okay.
and then he shoves a full fat coat down me because it's full of sugars and nutrients.
Yeah.
I'm unusual. I take 3 salt tablets a day. And luckily there was much salt in my food as I like.
Okay.
But salt flags the lymphedema. I need it for the rest of the body. What do I do?
Yeah.
And
I'm getting this feeling of this kind of balancing act between one thing affecting another and making sure that everything is.
It is, and he's trying to balance everything out and trying to manage everything. So I'm not around brown bread. I'm not allowed a lot of vegetables. I'm not allowed a lot of fruit. As I say, so I have to say so. Everything that the world says is bad, I have to eat white bread, white rice. Yes. And if things that they say, are good for you, I'm not allowed. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, no, I understand. That's really interesting. Joanna, so just coming back to this, I know your situation is different. You're living on your own. So, so how does that change things for you? And are there any members of your family or friends who are affected by your condition in any way, even though you live on your own?
I do have children. They are in Canada. They're adults now. And they, when I explained to them my diagnosis and what was actually wrong, they were like, oh, it was like a light bulb moment for them because some of the symptoms that they had grown up with were part of the Dercums, but I've always pointed out painful lipomas to doctors, and they were like, oh, everybody has them and you're fine, right? So I just kind of, and the multitude of other symptoms as well. But for them, it was kind of like a light bulb moment. Oh, I get it. Living on my own is a challenge, especially when I'm having a pain flare. I my bedroom's upstairs, my kitchen's downstairs. If I want to eat, I have to come down and right. That kind. So I do find that challenging. But going back to the pandemic, when I was at home, my neighbor was the most amazing person. She would do my shopping and things like that and bring me treats and things. She was just absolutely lovely. And I know I can count on her if I ever need to. Recently I was hospitalized and I have a cat. And so she took care of her while I was in the hospital. But yeah, it is a challenge being on your own. Yeah, physically and mentally, emotionally, because I'd love to have someone, as your husband sounds fantastic. I'd love to have that husband at home or, someone to just, you know what, you can just chill out, relax. I'll make dinner if I want to eat. Yeah.
And don't want my husband making dinner. My children still have nightmares from him making dinner.
Okay. So
That's the sentiment.
that's really fun. Well, so we'll wrap up now, but I'll just ask you both one question, really. You've obviously, you've lived with your conditions for a long time. You've developed some coping strategies, and there are good times and bad times, I'm sure. But if you look to the future, what are your hopes for your condition? Let me start with you, Bobbie. What are your hopes for your condition?
I would love a cure. I would love a cure that actually just took the leg away. I don't mind the bags. I've always said that I can live with the bags. It's the leg I hate. And I would love a cure, something that just took away, that they could just take it all. To me, that would be the best thing in the world. No amount of money will buy that at the moment. Until enough research is done. And like for you, you're read it's not interesting. It's not like breast cancer or something, whatever, they're going to throw the money at it. Because although it affects quite a few people post radiation treatment, it's not attractive, because nobody wants to look at somebody with a great big leg or arm, because it affects people who have the breast removed. They get it in the arm and the hand as well. Then so obviously that immobilized. So for me, that would be my real dear wish, and more people understood it. Really,
Right.
I have treatment back here, not in Newcastle.
On that subject, I'm adding something else now. But when we talked earlier about educating healthcare professionals, what do you think could be done to make healthcare professionals more aware of some of these rarer diseases? Is there anything that could be? Do you think any suggestions?
I know in my research, I discovered that actually there is, it's like a flagging system that the NHS is supposed to have. So if you have a rare disease, it's supposed to flag it up that you have this rare condition, so the doctor is aware and can educate themselves. How well that is working, I don't know, because I haven't really seen it, and it definitely doesn't come up on my file when I see a new doctor. I don't know if it was a pilot thing that they were start, but I would love to see something like that be actually work, where you can go in and they already know as soon as they pull up your file, it says rare disease. This is this, right? So going back to what Bobbie said about the awareness of it is would be great. If I in the future that my condition is progressive, I get more lymphomas all the time. And I'm in a support group with people who are at the more progressed and they're bedridden. They can't.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'd love for that cure to happen, so that, and pain. I'd love to be pain free. I really, really would. I think the pain, I can live with having ugly arms and legs and body because I'm bumpy and lumpy, but the pain is so hard to deal with. Yeah.
I see Bobbie nodding to that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Most pernicious part of it. Right, yeah. Oh, you mentioned the support group there. That's interesting. How useful do you find that?
I do. It's on Facebook actually. So I don't know, Bobbie, if you know about it. It's Dercums disease, but they do go into lymphedema and any other kind of connective tissue uh, disorders or swelling that they do. So you might want to look at that.
Well, there are lymphedema groups.
Yeah.
There is a London-based lymph charity member of I pay my membership for, who about leaflets and advice. In fact, I got the new one today. It's called Lymph Flowing. And the LSN, they're called.
Oh, okay.
And they just give advice. They have a telephone number that is manned by volunteers during the day. And it's newly diagnosed people or people who think they've got cellulitis and what do I do or whatever, can phone them up and just ask for advice.
Right.
So, because like for you, it's a small thing, it's a small charity. So I feel that they deserve to, I'd rather send my money to them than to a big charity who gets all the funding because everybody knows what about something like that. And I do my the easy fundraising shopping so that a proportion of whatever you buy online goes to them.
Okay.
It's like Amazon Smile used to be. Amazon stopped it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Dercums has anything like that.
Might be worth having a look at easy fundraising, because they have all sorts of things. And even if you've got a central organisation, a Dercums organisation that deals with it, then they may well, be able to get a count pennies. It'll be 20p here, 20p there, but it all adds up.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you were saying too was when you were talking about people don't want to deal with your leg because it's not pretty. There is stigma with people who are fat, and there is stigma with people who have fat disorders. And because of that, there isn't a lot of funding for research on how to, it is really, really interesting. There's a doctor in the States who's quite the advocate for it. And she's the one who actually influenced the wording in the medical description of Dercums. So she's quite the advocate. She specifies in fat disorders.
What influenced the wording in order to destigmatize it?
Yeah, to kind of word it so that it wasn't, a couple of years ago, it wasn't called a loose connective tissue disorder.
Okay.
I think it was just referred to as a fat disorder, which has that negative connotation to the wording, right? So she made them say, we need to call it what it is, and that it's loose connective tissue.
Okay.
So yeah, they are testing some injections into the lymphomas to try and dissolve them in the United States. But that's really, really new. But as here, not.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, listen, thank you both so much. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Thank you for, sharing so candidly. Final thing I'll just ask you both, start with you, Bobbie. What's the one thing you would like our audience to know about your condition?
Oh gosh, what would I like to know? I'd like them to know that you can live with it. It isn't nice, it isn't pleasant, but you can get on and lead a relatively normal life.
Okay.
I still go and play with my grandchildren, or it's just I can't climb the trees with them, but I can be there at the bottom to catch them when they fall.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't want to be climbing trees either at my age, so I fully sympathise with that. What about you, Joanna? What's the one thing you'd like our audience to know?
But that
I have to think about the same thing, really. Just kind of, you can live with it. It takes courage, it takes perseverance, it takes, and a lot of mental switching to be able to, you really need to uplift yourself. So it is possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's two nice, hopeful notes to finish up. So,
Yeah.
thank you for that. So I'm just going to speak to the audience now. So I would encourage people to, if you enjoyed hearing what you've heard today from our two wonderful guests, then please, send in some comments. If anything resonates particularly with you, so that you've heard in this session, then please give us your experiences, share your experiences, and so on. And if you're not already on the Facebook group for the Rare Together group, then please do join that. Apart from that, I'm going to say thank you so much to Joanna. Thank you so much to Bobbie. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Really appreciate your time. You're great to share. And I wish you both the best of luck with your conditions. And let's hope that, all your wishes come true in that respect.